We got the official decision today on the Brendan Sorsby saga, I guess is the correct way to say it. He's not going to be eligible for a supplemental draft because the supplemental draft is not going to happen this year. And there was a few different ways I think this was taken by people around the league, whether it's media members or people within the league or, what have you. But I think the main reaction from people is that this shouldn't have happened. He should have been eligible to be drafted. There should have been a supplemental draft, and even if he's suspended for 2026, even if he's suspended for the entirety of 2026, he still should be able to be drafted. And I don't think I could be any further away from that sentiment. I think when you look at a few aspects of this situation. First off, he's a quarterback that was placing bets on his own team. Not only was he a quarterback placing bets on his own team, he was placing bets on unders on his own team. That's like the cardinal sin of all of them. If you're a football player, if you're a sports player, Pete Rose still is not in the MLB Hall of Fame because of what he did. And whether or not you agree with that decision is kind of neither here nor there, because this was a quarterback in college football doing this. It wasn't a star player at the height of his career in Major League Baseball. This was a 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid that made these terrible decisions. And on that hand, I can have some sympathy that this was a 18, 19, 20-year-old kid making terrible decisions. But on the other hand, you can only give someone that benefit of the doubt for so long, especially when you consider the fact that Cincinnati University in 2024 knew about this. Not only did they know about it, they told Sorsby that they knew about it. They told him that they knew about the gambling. They didn't know the extent of the gambling, but they knew that it was going on. And in the era of NIL, if I were a booster for one of these colleges and I were to hear that the quarterback that we just signed a $5 million+ NIL deal to lost or gambled away almost $100,000 on sports betting, and some of that betting was against his own football team previously, I couldn't be any further out on that player. I couldn't be any further out on a coach that would put up with that or with a program that would put up with that. And I think this is kind of the situation that the NFL was put in, is that we have this highly volatile prospect who really did not serve a punishment. You can say that, 2026 was taken away from him for college. You can say that he was quote-unquote forced to go into a rehab for, what was it? It was like 35 days for the sports gambling, and somehow he's over his addiction to this, if it was an addiction. And now his ultimate punishment is supposed to be that he's drafted in the second round of the supplemental draft, and he's going to sign a multi-million-dollar contract with whoever. Like, how was that a punishment? The only way the NFL could have punished Brendan Sorsby, and I think kept this at a level of credibility and respectfulness, is to just say, we're not even going to give you the chance to get drafted. We're not even going to let you have a chance to get drafted. We're not going to force any of these teams to feel like they're in a position to make a choice on that. And I think it's the right call. I don't think it was just the right call. I feel like it was the only call that could have been made here. And now it's going to be interesting to see, because part of the reason that the NFL decided against having a supplemental draft is the fact that this didn't seem like Sorsby was really remorseful for his actions. It was almost immediately after his eligibility was revoked for 2026 that there was rumblings that he was just going to enter the supplemental draft. And I think that was the biggest problem the NFL had, was that he was just going to try to run to the NFL to save him, to get him out of any punishment with the NCAA, to get him out of any punishment in general. If you're going to try to say that being punished for 2026, he's already punished for that. That's why he should get drafted and be able to play. That makes absolutely no sense. That is taking the punishment away from somebody. And again, yes, he was a 19, 20-year-old kid making these terrible, awful, these decisions that every single person in his life previously to him being in college probably told him he could not make that decision. He cannot be a gambler. Not only can he not be a gambler, he can't be a sports bettor. Not only can he not be a sports bettor, he cannot be placing bets on his own team. Not only can he not be placing bets on his own team, he placed unders on his own team. He was making, there's reports that he was making bets at 2 in the morning. Why should his punishment be getting drafted into the supplemental draft? That makes zero sense to me. This is one of the few, off the field decisions where I am totally on the side of the NFL here. I'm totally on the side of the NCAA here. He should not be allowed to play next year. There needs to be a consequence for this. And again, he was a kid making these decisions. But now that he's looking at it in a retrospective, he cannot just play, he can't play victim here. He cannot. Because there is a level of credibility that is gone now from his name when it comes to off-the-field issues. There is a level of trust that is gone from this player. There is a level of reliability, I think, that is gone from this player. And those are three things, especially in a quarterback, especially in a young quarterback, that you're going to look at as either the face of your franchise or the future of your franchise. You need to have those three qualities. In this situation, I think, to me, took away all of those qualities from Brendan Sorsby's name. I think ultimately this is just going to lead to an interesting situation in 2027 when we get to February and March and April leading up to the draft, where Sorsby's name is going to come up again. His name is probably going to come up during the 2026 season if he for sure is not playing. And we're just going to have to wait and see what teams decide to take a swing on him next year. Hopefully after he has possibly learned his lesson. And that, he cannot just do things without suffering consequences. That's really the ultimate, I think, lesson here, is that there's consequences to everything. Any and everything has consequences. And to me, the NFL made the right decision, handing down the consequence of, we're not even going to give you the opportunity to get into the NFL. Now, whether or not his 2-game suspension, which is, kind of as you look back now, it's a little bit laughable that it's 2 games being suspended. But, whether or not he plays in 2026 in college, the thought in my head, I thought, well, what if he tries to play for the UFL or the Canadian Football League, or what could happen? Either way, I think it becomes kind of a sideshow to the NCAA season in 2026, to the draft process in 2027. It's going to be a sideshow. And one thing you can say is that now his ability to train and get better, it's obviously going to get worse. His ability to move up the 2027 draft board obviously is much worse than it was 3 months ago or a year ago. He's in a much worse position. And that should have been the outcome from this situation, is that he is facing the consequences. And there was a little bit of a vibe that he didn't really care that his 2026 season was taken away from him, because he'll just go play for the NFL. And I think in the end, that was the slap in the face that the NFL did not want to take. That these guys are just going to get kicked out of college. They're going to get kicked out of college football and just come run into the NFL because they think they can. But the NFL decided, no, we make the rules here. We decide when and who is going to have this supplemental draft. They decided Brendan Sorsby was not worthy enough to have that happen to him this year. That's going to be it for this video. If you have a different thought or opinion that I did not bring up here, make sure you put it in the comments down below. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.